Early, on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him." Then Peter and the other disciple set out and went toward the tomb. The two were running together, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent down to look in and saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he did not go in. Then Simon Peter came following him and went into the tomb. He saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. Then the other disciple, who reached the tomb first, also went in, and he saw and believed. For as yet they did not understand the scripture that he must rise from the dead. Then the disciples returned to their homes. I'm sure that I am not the only one who is a little bit puzzled by this strange intrusion into the story of Easter morning in the Gospel of John. I certainly understand why the story of Mary Magdalene discovering the empty tomb, her conversation with two angels inside, and then ultimately her meeting with the risen Jesus outside the tomb is really important. But I cannot help but wonder why, in the midst of all of that, we have to take a break to hear the story of a foot race between Simon Peter and this other disciple. You know, the story that goes a little bit like this. This is Retelling the Bible. Easter bonus, the first annual Sunday after the Passover foot race. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a beautiful, crisp, and clear Sunday morning. The sun is just a little up over the horizon on this early spring day. The birds are singing, a gentle breeze is blowing, and a lively crowd of hundreds has turned out for the final leg of this first ever Sunday after the Passover foot race. And yes, it seems as if the patience of all of these spectators has finally paid off, as I think, yes, I can see the two lead runners coming around the bend. My friends, this is so exciting. They seem to be running neck and neck. On the inside track is a figure that I know will be familiar to many running fans. He's big. He is brash, and he's built as solid as a rock. with broad shoulders and the calloused hands of a man who has spent many years hauling in fishing nets on the Sea of Galilee, that can only be Simon, who is known to his friends and fans alike as The Rock. But alongside him, matching him pace for pace, is that other guy. You know, he's that disciple that Jesus is really fond of, but I never seem to remember his name. The commentator in my ear is telling me that his name is John, but I'm not sure whether or not that is right. Anyways, this race just got pretty exciting, as it looks as if the other guy, you know, the one who isn't The Rock, just took the lead on the straightaway. Yes, as we come into the final stretch, he is a good length ahead of his nearest competitor. Oh, I can see the sweat on The Rock's brow from here as he struggles to catch up. But he just doesn't seem to have it left in him to make up that gap. And now, as we come up to the finish line, it is the other guy and The Rock, the other guy and The Rock. It looks like it's going to be a photo finish, a photo... But wait, what is happening now? It seems as if the other guy is stopping short. He's pulling up just before the finish line. I repeat, the other guy is not entering into the tomb. He's pulling up and just looking in. And yes, Simon the Rock is rushing straight past him and going into the tomb. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so exciting. It appears that we have a winner. The Rock has entered the tomb, and he is examining the linen cloths lying there. And now the other guy has entered as well. He appears to have come in second in this race, but it looks like, yes, it appears that he believes. Of course, it's not entirely clear at the moment what it is that he believes, because neither of them seem to have understood the purpose behind what has happened here today, because they do not understand that Jesus had to rise from the dead. When Elizabeth Magee, a creative genius, invented a game that powerfully illustrated the excesses of capitalism and monopolistic practices, she called it the landlord's game. But you've probably never heard of that game, have you? Even though it became one of the most popular board games of all times. That is because two men, George and Charles, better known as the Parker brothers, took her idea and renamed it Monopoly. Or think about the scientists who have taught us about the nature of the universe. Everybody knows who it was that discovered gravity, because his name was Sir Isaac Newton. Everyone knows who discovered the special theory of relativity. His name was Albert Einstein. So how is it that nobody seems to know who it was who discovered, what stars are made of, that they are mostly made of hydrogen. That was a phenomenally important discovery, and yet no one seems to know that scientist's name. It might have something to do with the fact that her name was Cecilia Payne Gaposchkin. Women have often discovered extraordinary things and made enormous accomplishments, and yet, when it comes to writing down the stories of these discoveries, how often do we tend to focus only on the things that men did? And so, yes, in the midst of the Gospel of John's resurrection story, which should be focused only on Mary Magdalene making the most important discovery of all time, it is somehow not very surprising that we are forced to pause and listen to a story about a couple of men who apparently got into a competition to see who could run to the tomb first. It seems like a bit of a moment when the men of the world are saying, "Hey, I know these women did amazing things on Easter Sunday, but hey, look at us over here. We found this folded cloth. Hooray for us." So, yes, it seems to me that there is a bit of male chauvinism going on in this account. But I do not think that this is just about a couple of men trying to steal the limelight. This little foot race is actually all about a rather dangerous trend that has been part of Christianity right from the very beginning. After Jesus died, the early Christians experienced something powerful: the continuing presence of Jesus. Oh, I know, we can't prove that Jesus really rose from the dead, but it seems undeniable that the Christians experienced things that convinced them that he was alive. And that was a powerful experience that clearly changed everything for them. But in the aftermath of that experience, the church was immediately plunged into a power struggle. There were people and factions who wanted to become the controllers and the conduits of this incredible power. And that is also what this foot race between Simon Peter and the other disciple represents. These two figures represent two factions of the church that were in contention with each other. We know that Simon Peter was an acknowledged leader for many in the early Christian church. The other disciple in this race, whose identity is very carefully kept obscured, represents the leadership of the church for which this gospel was written. Surely this is reflective of real-life conflict between those Christians who followed the leadership of Peter and those who saw themselves as part of the church of the beloved disciple. In addition, we know that Mary Magdalene was acknowledged, at least by some Christians, as an important leader and one who could speak for the risen Jesus. In many ways, this race is all about the early attempts of various men to replace her in her role as a leader, because some could not tolerate the very idea of female leadership. So I suspect that the author of this gospel, by inserting this strange story of two men racing to the tomb to look at some folded linen, might have been trying to say something about the absurdity of what the church has tried to do with the message of the resurrection of Jesus. We have tried to get it under human control. It just seems safer if we don't let it shake things up too much. That is it for this special bonus episode of Retelling the Bible. Come back next week for our regular episode. The theme music for the podcast is Ada by Kevin MacLeod. It comes from Incompetech.com and is licensed in the Creative Commons. The mood music, the overture to William Tell by Rossini, comes from the public domain. This is Retelling the Bible, and I am your storyteller, W. Scott McCandless, wishing you a happy Easter.